Are we recording, by the way?
Yeah, we are recording. Now we are recording.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Yeah. Just a quick reminder about Friday. You will have an opportunity to meet Fabian from Cohort Ventures. He will talk about how to pitch for investors. And it's a breakfast session between 8:30 and 9:30 Swedish time. And you can ask him any questions you want. He's both an business angel, but also running this
Cohort
Ventures as a partner, so which is a VC firm. So,
and he has experience from Silicon Valley, from US, large network of investors around him.
Yeah.
So please take the opportunity to bond with him and see if he can help you as well.
Yeah. And the second thing we want to say that Demo Day is approaching, and everybody will actually pitch from the companies from this autumn cohort. So we will be 8 companies pitching, so that's really cool. And please invite your investor contacts, but also ecosystem, for example, people from incubators or other people that you know who can, even if they're not in Norway, they can watch the online stream. So please invite them to the LinkedIn event that we have for the event, or you can, for your friends and others, you can send them a calendar invite with the link to the registration form and the streaming if you want to, and just say, hey, I would really like you to watch this.
I've opened the calendar invite for forwarding. So these things, just open the calendar invite to forward to your contacts.
Yeah. Or you can make an individual. We do that as well. For my personal relations, I send them, a personal invitation as well. So yeah, do what you think is good for you.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there some specific hotel that the cohort are booking or people are going to? Is there something specific?
Yes.
Yeah. So sorry if we haven't told you, but I think most know that we will stay at Thun Hotel Munk, and it's just 4 minutes from the venue.
Okay.
But
I think you should have got an email regarding that, right?
But perhaps not with the name. I can't remember. So, but Dasha, maybe you could just send Guli the name of the hotel. Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. So you can book there, and on your end you have a double room booked for you.
Thank you.
Both Roland and Golid. Yeah. And Rimas, you got one single room booked for you at the same hotel. So yeah, most of the companies will stay at the same place, but also the accelerator team. So it will be great fun, both at the venue, but also for breakfast the day after, for those who want. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I think that was the housekeeping stuff for this time. Yeah.
So today we have 2 topics, actually. And the first topic is about startup teams and extended teams as well.
Yeah.
Because teams can be so many things, right? And the second thing we're going to talk about is the IRP report. We're going to touch on that slightly. And we're going to look at investor mapping as well.
Yeah. And you will be able to ask us any questions that you want. So before we ask you a question this time, David will give you an introduction of from his point of view as an investor.
Yeah.
And this is actually a model that you've been developing in co-creation with other investors.
Yeah.
So please tell us.
Now you can say that this is pretty much the essence of my experience as an investor in the startup world. So I started to draft, what's important for an investor in terms of value drivers. And for those of you that have done the IRP, you know that the value drivers are very important in valuation, right?
Yeah.
So I actually made an hypothesis, which didn't look exactly like this, but almost like this. And I started to sharing it with some of my investor friends. And then I shared it on LinkedIn, and I got tremendous response. I got hundreds of comments of investors who added, deleted. So this has been running a couple of iteration times around, and this is pretty much where it landed. So the conclusion here is that there are 4 categories of value drivers that investors really look at, and then you can break that down to all the details you see on the left side here. But really, what's on top of the pyramid here is the team. That's really what investors invest in. Do you recognize it, Stefan?
Yeah, definitely. We hear that all the time. That I like the team. We can always change the idea. You can always change the technology and so on, even if it's expensive. But the team is if you haven't got a great team from the start, well, there's nothing to invest in.
When I got so many stories, I've seen it myself and I heard it from many others, that if you have the right team, you can move mountains.
Yeah.
You can even have a mediocre product and still succeed.
Yeah.
Because the team is great. Vice versa, if you have a team that's not great, you can give them gold.
Yeah.
And they will turn it into nothing. So team is number 1 across all categories. What we see as startup founders is that we fall in love with our product. So when we develop something, we're very proud of it,
Yeah.
don't we?
Yeah.
So we like to talk about the great product and all the bells and whistles and features and
Yeah.
all the stuff that we've made, right? But that's not really what the investors are looking for. Number 1, that's I would say it's a high gain factor. That's something you have to have, but that's not the USP, really.
Yeah.
And something that's easy to forget is the actual market between the team and the product itself. Because even if you have a great product, do we have a market to sell it into?
Yeah.
Very important. Are we part of a large trend, for example? Is it growing?
Yeah.
So this is
I just tell me, why don't you want to go into a market that's shrinking? Just state the obvious here.
Well, the obvious thing is that you want to expand every year. You want month-on-month growth or year-on-year growth. And to be able to do that, you need to be part of a trend.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's of course possible to have a growth even in the markets that's declining, but then the chances are decreasing drastically. So of course you want to go into a growing market. However, you also want to go into a so-called blue ocean. You don't want to go into a red ocean, because even if the market is growing, you don't want to go in there if there's a lot of players doing what they do, because then you have to fight anyway. So look at the blue ocean and the red ocean as fishing. You want to throw out your net when there's a lot of fish, but not a lot of fishermen. That's basically blue ocean strategy that goes with the growing market.
Yeah. So just to be clear here, David, you also got some feedback that why isn't the team in the bottom here and the other way around?
Yeah, that's semantics, because some of the investors said, "Why do you have a pyramid, David?"
Yeah.
so we still discuss what's the optimal sort of model for this, but the essence is the same.
Yeah.
Team is more important. Market is number 2.
Yeah.
Product is number 3, and the fourth one here, the context, is that you need to time it right as well. And here, yes, you can plan it, but you also need a little bit of luck to have the perfect timing as well.
Yeah. So that's so important with timing. Not too early, not too late.
Yeah.
In the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's.
So I think with this as a backdrop, I think we all understand how important it is to try to break down the team.
Yeah.
So should we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So let's break down what we think are parts of the team, because it's so easy to just think of you as founders. So here's how we see it. The startup team as a whole. And of course you have founders and you also have co-founders. And the difference might be that the co-founders just have a small percentage, but they actually own something in the company. So this looks really different. Sometimes the one person has 80% and the rest has 20%, and sometimes it's 20. It all depends upon. But that's the people that we're talking about there. And they might work for free and bootstrap the company, or they might get salary, depends on how it looks. But they own the company. And then as you grow or as you need to develop, you need to hire people,
Yeah.
And you can use, and that's what you might have management people or employees, support people, technicians, or depending on what you need. And parts of these can also be consultants.
Yeah. So going back a little bit to the founders part.
Yeah.
I think it's quite important to sometimes stop a bit and see, where are we? in our team. We'll go around after this slide and see where we are in each startup. But do we have a complete founder team or co-founder team? Do we have the skills that we need to be able to take the company to the next level? The typical perfect startup team has perhaps 2 or 3 co-founders with different skill sets. Typically, you have a domain expert, someone that really knows the business and what drives the business. You typically have a technical person who knows how to build something. And you typically have a commercial person who knows how to do business. So these 3 are typically 3 persons, but it doesn't have to be. No. Sometimes there can be 1 person or 2 persons as well. So it's important to try to look at the co-founding team from outside to see, are we complete or do we need to mitigate this?
And if you can't have all these competences within the founder team and so on, you might hire someone or use a consultant and build, because you need to build up these competences within the company.
Which is also very common, by the way. That you hire the competence that you don't have, and with that comes risk. As well, which we've seen, I'd say, quite often. That if you don't have the processes right here, in, for example, let's say product development, things can happen in terms of IP. Right. But we'll get back to that later.
So, and okay, stuff that you need, or that's usually the case, is a great way to develop your team is actually to use a advisory board. And this is usually members who do this for free. And there might be a board, where you have regular meetings, or it just might be advisory persons, supporting you in different ways. And that you can use, and they will give you advice, mentorship, and stuff like that. And here it's really good to have from different kinds of fields, like researchers, scientists, but also depending on who your customer is, people from that sector or from the public sector, or depending on what you want to show the whole perspective. And if you're not a medical, person in yourself, you're more a technical founder and you develop a medtech product, you need to show that you actually have these competences within it. And to have them in the advisory board is a really good thing.
And you can look at it as a farming team, where you can recruit either to the board later on, because sometimes you need to get to know the persons before they feel comfortable with going into the board, and you need to be comfortable with having them in the board. So for that matter, I think an advisory board is a good way to get to know each other and see if you want to work closer. Secondary, we also seen advisory board members go in as investors and co-founders into the startups. So it's a very good farm team for other roles later on. Very important.
And let's talk a little bit about what we call the company board here, just to make the difference. You usually say just a board, but all of your companies do have a board. Sometimes companies don't realize that, but you actually have a board, either with you or just a founding team, or with your partner or wife or family or friends or whatever you put in the board when you register the company. But as you grow and as you take in investors and so on, it's very important to actually build what we call a real board. Based on that, with different kinds of competences as well. But it's not perhaps the most important thing to do early in the beginning, because you don't really know what competences you need and which persons should be suitable for the board. Because the board can also, break a company, but also make it succeed. So it's a very important tool, because they actually decide the development of the company. So you have to be a little bit careful, but you need to have a plan for it and use it as a tool for growing the company.
And I think if you can find a good board member as a third party, someone that's not necessarily a shareholder or have any other roles in the company, that could add a tremendous value to the setup, because you can look at it from a different angle. Specifically people with great networks, both in the business and also with other investors. So please start thinking about that and find these ultra strategic persons that can be part of your board as well.
When we're talking about this, we also see the investors in the company as partners or part of the startup team, because you will be working very closely together, at least if not just putting in some small amounts of money as a family member or something like that. You will need to see this as partners. And some of the investors might, you know, what's it called? Also, they want to sit in the board, and that's a krav. What's mandatory? That's a condition for doing the investment, that you want to sit in the board.
VCs typically opt for that.
Yeah, business angels usually not, but might do. So that's a question that you need to be able to answer to, or ask them if they have that kind of demands and so on. So this is ongoing discussion. And part of that is also that even if they don't want to sit in the board for some reason, some of them has demands for I don't know the English word, adjungerad, when they have the opportunity to sit in the meetings and listen and so on, but they're not the ones who actually is deciding.
The substitute.
Yeah, what's it called?
Substitute.
So, yes, kind of substitute for
observers
and observers and so on. Yeah, you're right. So that could also be the case. There's something to think about. That could be good, and maybe you could be a little bit more flexible with observers because you want to have them on board and they can support you and so on. But because and why doesn't everybody wants to sit in the board? You might ask, and that's of course because you are personally responsible as a board member for what happened in the company.
We have one super angel that we both know, Trond Lieber Knudsen.
Yep.
He invested in quite a few of our startups.
Yeah.
And I think it's more than 110 companies now that he invested in.
Mm-hmm.
And him as an example, he always says, I don't want to sit in the board. Okay, why not? Well, because I invested in 110 companies. How can I sit in 110 startups and have 110 responsibilities? That's too dangerous for me. So some of them absolutely don't want to.
Yeah.
Well.
So don't be offended if they have that perspective on it. So that's something to learn a little bit more and understand, and ask and have discussions with your potential investors about.
I also want to elaborate a little bit about the first part here.
Yeah.
The founders and the co-founders. I know that all of you know that it's good to have an option pool for future employees. It's called ESOP. ESOP, of course. And for those of you that have done the IRP report, we typically take a hike for ESOP when we prepare the funding rounds.
Yeah.
So we actually have the available shares for future employees. So think about that. If you want to keep 1% or 10% or whatever it may be, make sure that there's a way for new employees to be partners, to retain skills in the startup. Very important.
Yes. Great point. And please look at all these parts of the startup team as an ongoing process. This is something, as you see, there's a process here, and it develops over time what you need. And it's impossible to do everything when you start. You need to build this successfully. But when we look at successful startup teams, they usually have this kinds of bigger team around them, actually. Yeah.
Before we move to investors, investments, should we go a little around and see where we are on the team space?
Yeah.
Roland, I can see that you are in the picture here now. Do you want to share with us how you look at your situation in terms of your team? Are you complete? Do you need mitigation? How does it look? Try to describe it.
Yeah, we're a team of 3 and have been working on this for 3 years plus. We have bootstrapped the company, so we have not raised capital to be able to hire people or to pay people. We have identified positions that we need post funding, but we can take the 3 of us plus the advisors around us. We can take the company to investment readiness. We believe. We have an entire group of advisors, none of which we have a formal engagement with. We noticed that some advisors, it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Some advisors still like to get paid. Actually, often the really skilled people in our space, say professors in mental health or so, we have good relationships, but we noticed that for them to formalize a position in the company, they look to, for some payment. So it's a bit of chicken and egg situation. Ideally, we could show to investors today, 5, 6 professors in psychiatry and psychology. We don't, although we are connected to the space, and we continue to expand our network in the space. I would maybe finish by saying it is a bit of a challenge for us, because we're breaking into a market that both Joanna and I and the third partner were not professors in psychiatry and psychology. So we're bringing something to a sector that is really new and potentially revolutionary. And we noticed that, and David's chart, showing the team on top, that some people take a bit of time to understand actually our solution, and then reflect on the team and our skill set, which is it's a very technical solution, and then realize that actually we may have an interesting place to, or an interesting offering to a sector that we're not originally coming from, or we're not academics in this sector, although we did education in it. But so those are some reflections and some challenges that we notice.
Do you feel that you have any gaps in the team where you need to mitigate?
We know what we need to to be able to accelerate growth. So, for example, business development. We need a senior business developer. We simply cannot afford that position. We think we have met a number of people, so we think the position will actually be quite easy to be placed. But that's at this stage a gap. We're not at the stage to really roll out yet. But we in general, where we see gaps, we are confident that we can find the right people to fill the gaps and build the next level of the team.
Can I ask you a question out of curiosity, in terms of third-party consultants? Obviously, you built a platform, right? You have some kind of IP here. I know you have patent pending and stuff like that. But do you use third-party developers for this, or you do it in-house?
We have done most of the work in-house. All our technical work we have done in-house. All our the AI solution, software development, all that we have done in-house. We have just moved to a third patent attorney, which we found is quite a challenge to find the right person in a very specific space that we're in. We need a person that understands biotech and medtech, and or biotech in particular. And we now found a patent office through actually our potential investor in Israel. And
Okay.
So it's the third version. We often felt that as a startup in a more prominent firm, you're not a priority. And so the initial patent work we got, and we were not experienced in it, I have to say as well, was not great. So it's a challenge to find the right consultants that really have the specific knowledge and are not charging huge amounts.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think this is a good case actually to visualize the the balance between doing things in-house contra using external consultants. Of course, you need to go to external consultants very often as a startup because you don't have the resources yourself. But with that also comes risk that you need to mitigate.
Yeah. So I would see if Bilal or Golid would like to comment just quickly about the Record Doctor team. because we know you've grown your team and you have
Yes.
a great team. So any thoughts of that?
Yes, I think we have a good team. There's some challenges that we faced. Our core team, basically, there's 4 founding members and 1 member who's been in the team since the beginning. So we're 5 core team members. Then we have a developer that came up into the team quite early, but has smaller equity, but we pay salary to him. And basically, outside our team, we've received an interest of a senior level healthcare leader who would be interested to be an advisor for us. The contact actually came from his side. We were contacting him as a possible customer for a municipality, and then he saw potential and said would be interested, and we had meeting with him as well. But the challenges that we faced, one is that basically we are self-funded so far, and we pay salary to our developer, so that's an expense. We have 1 technical person in our team, but he's not able to do all the work. So that's why so far we've had to pay for this. And another challenge that actually is not a challenge currently, but in the future, is me as a medical doctor who's doing specialization currently. I'm not able to continue as the CEO in case the company grows larger. So there's sort of like a type of paradox here. We have a business person in our team, Aber, who's in the strategy in Finland's largest telecommunication company. But the challenge is that he's not allowed to represent us if he's like in his current job. He's not allowed to represent us as well. So there's that challenge, and also for him to come from a corporate job that's secure into a startup. That's so basically that's maybe our biggest future challenge. Me doing my anesthesiology, and when could we get possible maybe investment, and then we would have to go full time. Yeah.
I think this is a quite common scenario
Yeah.
what you're describing now, that you have a couple of founders, you actually have a complete skill set amongst the team members, right? But all of you have different challenges because you all have full-time jobs and careers beside, and to jump from that into a startup, it's a risk, and you won't do it until they have the money, and you probably won't have the money until you do it. So it's a kind of chicken and the egg situation, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you also have other things. Even though you have the skill set, still you need to think about the gender equality and things like that, that you need to mitigate as well. So there are other challenges, but well done. Interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, this was a really good examples of challenges that a team faces as well. So yeah, definitely. So before we move on, we would like to show you a picture of actually what we see, one of the most common things that actually happens in startups team. And this is usually if you don't get the funding, or the funding ends in some reason, but you keep on running the show as long as you can, and step by step the founders or the people working in the team are going down, working less and getting consultant work or getting a higher paying job somewhere else, and the team, instead of exploding as you want it to do, it's imploding and team implosion. And suddenly you are less people doing this, and suddenly after maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years. So the company doesn't go into bankruptcy or it isn't closed down. It's just there. And that's what we call startup zombies. And this is quite common. And this is, but you don't hear so much about it. But it's, I don't want to say a percentage, but it's a lot of companies they're just there. But the people are doing other stuff and say, oh, if we get money, then we will start to do it working again. But it's impossible to get money again because you have no one working in the company. So yeah, it's a chicken and egg again.
And both investors and I would say the support ecosystems agrees. In Norway we have Innovation Norway. In Sweden we have Almi. And I spoke to both of them, and they all say the same thing. You can't see this on paper. You just see that one day when you call, no one picks up the phone. It goes slowly.
Yeah. And I know that from your around 50 investment that you've done within your company, they just disappear.
You call them, say, hey, how's it going? Ah, well, I got a job.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? 3 months ago.
Yeah.
All right. So it happens.
Who works in the company? No one. So we just want to say that it's not uncommon or anything like that. And here's a definition of implosion: the act of falling towards the inside with force, a situation which something falls suddenly and completely. And that's the last thing is where you saw, if you follow the OpenAI story during the weekend, the biggest value destruction of history. Follow that story if you haven't done that yet. All right, let's move on. The IRP report. And we actually got this question before the demo day. Should I print out the IRP report and bring it to the investors on demo day? But that's not what we see as the purpose of the IRP report, right? The purpose is more like building the knowledge for you and to have it in your head and in the background, and have it as a part of the discussion with investors, that you know the answers to these things in the report. Then you can also add the report to the data room as a part of it. And it will save you a lot of time.
Should be complementary.
It's complementary, Please remember, the first step is always, and if you haven't watched me and David's session about how to speak to investors, it's recorded, so watch that. It's always about building a relationship first, both an interest, but also a relationship. An interest in what you do and see if is this something, and then you build a relationship.
But having said that, the IRP report is a dynamic platform. Of course, you go back and iterate it all the time. But some of our startups have actually printed it. I'm not going to say a name, but what I think was Cohort 3. They actually printed it as a brochure, in a high quality brochure, and gave it to investors, and that actually worked for them. But that wasn't the actual purpose. Not purpose. Is it? You.
The writing is wrong here, but the spelling. And sometimes it could be a problem because you can change it so much when it's in print, so it's easier to have the digital version in the data room. So we just want to point that out. And the second part of this is also as part of the investment readiness process, is that you have these questions about your investor profile. Who are you looking for? And this is the purpose of that part is just to sharpen your focus on what to focus on, of course. It doesn't mean that not everybody else is interesting. They could be, it depends upon. But your focus is so much more
we've said it
better.
We said it so many times now throughout the accelerator, but we cannot stop saying it because we see startups continue doing the same mistake over and over again. Don't use the shotgun approach. Use the laser. Big difference, because you have a very limited time and limited resources, and you need to get bang for your bucks and for your time. So when you talk to investors, make sure you talk to investors that are investors that would be interesting to invest in your startup. Don't talk to the others.
No.
And how do you know this? We will look at that.
That's what we call the investor mapping then. So you have your profile, what you're looking for, and then you need to do the kind of work in this regard to actually map out to see which business angels, which companies are suitable for us. And you can add them to your investor CRM system if you have that, or just a list in Excel. And some things to think about in these cases is the sector? Which sector are they interested in? And which companies, which phase of the companies are they interested in? And which ticket size do they give?
Yeah, these are actually the three categories. And I'd say that the critical one here is the maturity, the phase here. Because very often, I think you as a startup, we are, yes, we're interested, this is cool, but you're too early. Come back later. So if you can avoid that and you wait, it's of course good. Having said that, it's of course great to build relationship with investors. That's also great.
Yeah.
But it's more important to find the right ones now so you get your money.
Yeah. And then we'll come back here to what the risk and value return model from the IRP tool. And this is good. From the lower end, left end here, on the left side, you have the types of financing. And on the right lower end, you have the phase of your company. So think about this. Have you exploited all the possibilities for grants from the government and other perhaps regional opportunities that you have?
Of course, because the dilution effect on your cap table on grants are zero. So you should really exploit that 100% before you start getting equity into the companies. You have to give equity. Very, very important. We've seen that quite often, actually, that you haven't actually completed that before you go to investor. Make sure that you look at whatever there is out there to in form of grants, research grants, market grants. It can be many different shapes and forms.
And this is also, at least that's to some part a quality assurance for the investor as well, that someone else has actually thought that this was a good thing. For example, the Swedish Innovation Agency or something else. If they have, or Innovation Norway in Norway, if they have invested a few $100,000 as grants, it's at least a little proof of that you're on the right way.
And particularly the business angels that are typically not professional investors. They typically have another job and they think this is fun. They will feel much more secure if the government has given you a grant. Because then they will say, check on that. The government thought it was good. Then I can perhaps invest as well.
And business angels is usually the case that you go to as the next step. And most of your companies are looking for that. And these are people who are more difficult to find, actually, because they usually don't have web pages that you just could Google and so on. But you can find them in angel networks, for example. That's a really good way of getting into them, or into different kinds of databases where you can actually find at least the bigger business angels who are doing this, perhaps not as a hobby, but more as a work.
A great way is to get the contact with some of these networks so that you get in there, get to pitch to the networks. You're in one place, and indirectly you will perhaps reach hundreds of angels. And the good part with angels is that they don't just invest with their head, they invest with their heart as well. So it's not always logical why they invest. So if you talk to a few of them, sooner or later you will get a few who will like you and they will invest for that reason.
And the second part after the industry, you usually, but it's not always the case as well. Of course, you can go to VC companies as directly as well, but to family offices and explain the difference.
It's a huge difference between a family office and a VC. A family office invests their own money, which they typically have developed wealth over maybe long time. It could be second, third generation. It could be hundreds of years old company that today are looking at tech startups, for example. While a VC invests other people's money. They establish a fund. And then they go out there and then find so-called LPs, limited partners that will put money into the fund. And then they will invest from the fund into the startups on behalf of the investors. And for that, they take a fee. So it's a completely different driver for investment. And obviously, for them to do a piece of work, it will be the same piece of work if it's a small investment or a big investment. So naturally, they would like to have bigger investments. Because it's the same work for them. So if you come to them and say, hey, I'm looking for 300,000 euros, they're not going to give you the time of day because they say, well, come back when they are put a zero on the end. Then I can perhaps put my time into it. That's a big difference.
And I just want to give an example of how a family office can work in the region of Värmland. We have this coffee company called Löfbergs, and they've been running around for 100 years or something like that. Very successful. and earned a lot of money.
I'm drinking Löfbergs now.
Yeah, of course we do. We're in Värmland, yeah. And I think perhaps 2-3 years ago, they actually started this investment firm as part of their family office, Löfbergs Invest. And since they are so their investment mandate is around food and drinks and all that can be associated with the coffee in different ways, you know. So that's the investment mandate. So there you can pitch and send that in that perspective. That's what they're looking for, and of course that's because they want to have, you know, see what's happened in the market. So it's a really good way of getting all this input from early stage innovation companies in their field. So that's one of the purposes, not just for investment, it's also for securing the family company, you know, to not miss any opportunity out there. But what's interesting in their case is they, in their investment mandate, they actually have a possibility to go outside the food investment mandate if it's a company from Värmland, because they have this home base here and so on. So we actually got 2 companies right now in the due diligence process of Löfbergs Invest who are not in the food industry, but from our accelerator who they're looking at them because they are registered in Värmland and they love the entrepreneurs here. So that's a thing to think about as well, that you have this heart part there as well. But it takes a long time, because these are not, you know, that risk willing, because it's their own money, you know, and the family usually needs to say yes and to think that this is a good thing, a sustainable thing, and so on. So because they have their reputation to think about in a different way than just a VC who's just spending money. So there's some things to be to have in mind.
Another quite interesting part here, I think, is if you look at the vulnerability here from bottom to top, it corresponds with access to capital right now. So as you know, it's quite tight with investors in the market now. But the higher you go here in this graph, the more volatile you are. So think about that. So if you look at the government, for example, they are hardly impacted because they're committed. They're gonna commit X amounts of millions or billions or whatever to startups either way. Business angels, since they invest with their heart, they can't impact that very much either. They might have slightly less money, but not a whole lot less. So we actually don't see a huge difference right now in business angels investment. They still invest. But the higher you go up, the family offices, they might be a little bit more tight, but not a lot. But once you reach corporate VC or VCs, that's really where it happens. They really tighten up now, especially the VCs. Corporate venturing typically invest their own money in the company, while the venture capital company invests other people's money, as we said. So for them to empty a fund now, they know that they have to go out and fill up a new one, which is more or less impossible. So that's why they take a little bit easy, and they bet on that evaluations will get come down. That's very hard. PE, very slow as well. Right now, for those of you that don't know what private equity is, it's more like it's a buyout. So they basically invest in the company that have gone through the growth phase, and they see a future in capital requirement and big deals. So they actually want to buy out more or less 100%. So that could be, I would say, a very prospective exit after perhaps 5 to 10 years, something like that. And then, of course, the stock exchange IPO is in the end. So the higher you get, the more volatile you are. So right now, for those of you that are early stage, product ready, first paying customers, obviously talking to angels and family offices, not a bad thing.
No. So that's what we call investor mapping, to actually know what you're looking for, and it will save you and the investors a lot of time, and you will be more professional. But of course, it's always good to get feedback from people that you talk to and so on, and you can say, we know that your company, we are too early for you. We just want to tell you what we do and see if you have any advice for us. Of course, you can put it in that way. And they might just say that, well, this is interesting, keep me updated, and you will add them to the list. So
I know, Roland, I know that you spoke to VCs, and we've been through that in the previous session. But what are your thoughts now going forward on investors?
We're actually looking to do a pre-seed round, a smaller round. The reason is we're filing an application for a larger grant to the Swiss Innovation Agency. And in order to qualify for the grant, we need to have a third of the requested amount, which is roughly 900,000 or €1 million. We need to have a third of this amount in a bank account. So in order not to miss the deadline, which frankly wouldn't be a disaster, but we're trying to meet the deadline of 10th of January, we're looking to raise a pre-seed round. So we just offered, I think, a pretty interesting deal to a few select potential investors in a pre-seed round that we had already engaged with. So let's see if that works, and that will give us leeway, particularly if we get the grant, to go well beyond next year, and then we're in a better position to raise the seed round or the A round.
And that's a practical example of what we did earlier when we showed you the graph with the government grants, and it will reduce the dilution effect quite a lot, while you have valuation that's not very high. So I think that's a really good idea. Have you made any thoughts on what kind of investors you would go for to match that?
Yeah, it's actually the one potential investor is a VC that we had a term sheet from, but we couldn't complete the round in time. So the term sheet elapsed, and we have now been going back and forth, and so they are potentially a prospect for that. And there is a family office, Swiss-based, and there's another German-based small family office type investor that is considering.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ron.
Really good. So we just want to open up here, because this is just 1 hour session today that we booked, for questions from perhaps the rest of you following this, or about the team and team
or investors,
or investors and investor mapping or IRP report.
Feel free.
Feel free. We're here to help.
I want to ask about the data room you mentioned. How does it work, and what type of information should be there?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, if you haven't watched the whole session with me and David talking about how to speak to investors, in the end there, you will have an overview of the content that can be added to a data room. Well, you can of course also Google that part. What we want to say is you can, in the simplest way, you can just use the Google what's it called?
Google Docs.
Google Docs, for building up your folders with files. But there are also specific data room services for investment where you can actually follow who sees the information, and so it cannot be downloaded and stuff like that. And sometimes it's worth to actually pay a little bit for doing that. But as a start, you can just add these folders to the service that you already have.
We actually made a list on documents that you should have in the data room, so we can send that to you. So you have it for your reference. And like what Stefan said, in his simplest form, all you need is a folder. Anywhere, Dropbox, whatever, that you share, then you put the documents there. That's the data room in the simplest form. So our suggestion is just get started. Start to put documents there that are related to investment information. Of course, the pitch deck is number one. All right, this is the first one. And then you need all the financial models, of course, in Excel. You need term sheets. So it's a couple of things that you need to put there to share. But my suggestion is, it's quite a lot to do in one go. So start moving it over slowly according to the list.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I will add the
You can do it directly.
also the presentation.
It's in there, right?
Yeah, it's here.
If you put it in the chat field.
Yeah.
Gulet, you will get it now in the chat field, the presentation, and in that presentation you will find the list.
Yeah. Just fix this. So yeah, other questions?
I have an unrelated question regarding the demo day. Just wanted to ask you, how do you get from Oslo Airport to the hotel? What are the ways? Is it train, bus?
It's a high-speed train that goes to the airport and the city. It takes about half an hour.
Okay, okay. Thank
And
you.
it goes every 10th minute, so it's no problem at all.
Very simple. It takes you straight into the central, and from central it's walking distance to the hotel.
Okay, nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah. Perfect. Other questions?
Cool. We're 6 minutes up.
Yeah.
That's 6 points, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And here's the presentation from that, but you can also watch the recording. As we said, it's on the YouTube playlist for the, just as all the other sessions as well. Yeah. And for those of you who missed the MDR session and the information security part last time, you can also watch that 2 hours. Very valuable for you. And also questions that you will get from investors and customers about MDR and information security and so on. So please watch that if you haven't done that, because you really need to be able to answer these questions.
I agree.
Sooner or later.
And if you have any practical questions in relation to the trip, just email Dasha. She will be, I'll say, the fastest one to answer you.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right.
All right. See you on Friday, hopefully.
Absolutely.
As the next session. Yeah.
All right.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.
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 Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.